Welcome to the meeting of the Gloucester Conservation Commission for Wednesday, June 26, 2024. The time is just after 5:30. And we'll start with a roll call of commissioners. Member Charpentier.
Here.
Member Cook.
Here.
Member Gadwall.
Here.
Member Sargent.
Here.
Member Viteri.
Here.
Member Bella.
Here.
And Member Jackson. All right, so we have quorum present.
Don't check and see it. Okay. All right. Next up is the administrative briefing. Do we have anything to discuss under that, Chuck?
I don't have anything at the moment. We do have a couple continuations that weren't on the original agenda, but we'll get to those pretty quickly, so I won't waste the time going to those right now.
Okay, next up is the public comment period. This is the period of the meeting where anyone in the public can speak towards any conservation issues that are not, I repeat, not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to do so, please raise your hand using the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
Yeah, 11 attendees, and I am not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, moving along. We'll go to the minutes review and approval. We have June 5th on the table, 2024. Looks like we have a quorum, so we can move that. Linda, if you have for it.
Yeah, Charpentier moves to approve the minutes of June 5th, 2024.
Roll seconds.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Gullo.
Yes. Okay, moving along to continued business. We have notice of intent 0282950. That has already previously been continued to July 17th, 2024. Next up is notice of intent 0282981. That also has been previously continued to the 7th, 17, 2024. I should say July 17th, 2024. Next up is extension 0282784. That also has been previously continued to July 17th, 2024. And moving over to the next page. Is the next one you have, just to be clear, Chuck, an extension, the extension?
Yes.
Next up would be notice of intent 0282968 Raven Lane. That has requested a continuation to July 7th.
July 17th.
2024. Do you want to continue that?
Need a motion?
Yes, please. To continue.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282968 at 22 Raven Lane to the commission meeting of July 17th, 2024.
Gadwall second.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Gullo.
Yes. Okay, moving right along. Next up is notice of intent 0282976. This also has been requested a continuation to July 17, 2024.
The Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282976 at 171 and 281 rear Magnolia Avenue to the commission meeting of July 17th, 2024.
Gadwall seconds.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Gullo.
Yes. Okay, next up, notice of intent 0283003 Old Nugent Farm Road, Old Nugent Farm Condominium Association for replacement of existing decks within riverfront area, buffer zone to BBW, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Orson Aperly of Williams and Sparagus LLC represented.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thorsten Akerley, professional wetland scientist with Williams and Sparages, here representing the Old Nugent Farm Road Condominium Association. Last meeting, we reviewed the notice of intent with the commission for the proposed replacement of existing decks within the replacement of existing decks within the same footprint on all of the buildings within jurisdictional areas of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. The only piece of information we were waiting for was a DEP file number. We did receive that, I believe, the day after the meeting, which is unfortunate, but we have gotten it, and I'm here with Greg Huntley from SPS Solutions, the contractor. If you have any additional questions for us, we're happy to answer or address anything else.
Okay. Chuck, you want to do roll call commissioner comments? If there's anything else to add?
Carpentier,
No comments.
Member Cook,
No additional comments.
Member Goodall,
No comment.
Sergeant,
No comments.
Member Terry,
No comments.
Member Gullo.
Nothing else to add. Okay, so with that, do you have anything else to add, Thor, or are we good?
No, I think that was it.
Okay. With that, do we want, let's close the hearing, Linda?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for NOI 028-30030 Old Nugent Farm Road.
Cadwell seconds.
Call Member Carpentier,
Yes,
Cook,
Yes.
Goodall,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. Okay, sir, you're all set.
oh,
Thank you all. Thank you all for
No,
your
we-
time.
We have to, yeah, we have to vote on it still.
yeah, we have to vote on it. Hold on.
It's a classic.
Sharpen,
meeting.
okay, Charpentier moves to approve NOI 028-30030 Old Nugent Farm Road.
Cadwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Carpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Abstain.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes,
Right, thank you all.
thank you. Okay, new business, notice of intent, 3002, 22 Forest Lane. Mr. Patel, construction of a driveway to access a single-family home and riverfront area. John Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc., represent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing the Patel family for this project at 22 Forest Lane. This is a project, it's a vacant lot. It's quite a large lot. Chuck, I'm not sure if you have it at your fingertips, but this is a, thank you. This is a residential dwelling that's proposed well outside the buffer zone, and the issue here, the resource area is actually across the street. So we were commissioned to design a sewage disposal system for the family, and this is over almost 7 acres of land, and they just want to put up a single family house as shown here outside the buffer zone. And what had happened was across the street there was an associated buffer zone associated with that, and we had done a stream calc through the state website indicating what we thought was a intermittent stream, where it's mapped on the USGS maps as a blue line. It's considered under the state regulations a perennial stream, and so we have since come back with this plan. During that initial period of building the house, the contractor came in and cleared the proposed driveway, which basically followed the existing path that went up the hill to the house. And there was extra trees taken out, more than what was really needed. And so we're here with a notice of intent, more or less after the fact, but to allow for a driveway that would be permanent. So it's really not after the fact, but the 200-foot riparian zone is shown to that unnamed stream across the street, across Forest Lane, and also the 100-foot riparian zone. So what we have are, we went out and counted the stumps that were, the trees that were cut down within the 200-foot riparian zone, and we're proposing that 200% of those be replanted within that area, and we have mitigation notes to that effect. There was primarily white pine, red or white oak, and some American beech trees that were noticed, and that's the predominant overstory in on this hillside. So, we are, that's why we're here. We're proposed to replant 200% of those trees that were removed, and we can answer any questions that you might have. I believe Jake Patel is on the line. If you don't recognize him, Chuck, he may want to speak to it. Thank you.
Okay. Why don't we jump into public comment period? Anyone in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 22 Forest Lane may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We do have 11 attendees, and the only hand up right now is Jignesh.
Yeah, that's Jake. Yeah.
We'll wait to hear his side. Let's why don't we move through commissioner comments, Chuck?
All right, Member Carpenter.
Just want to know how many, we're saying 200% of the trees, how many trees were removed and how many are we planting?
I counted 37 stumps, Linda,
Whoa,
and that's over, that's 200 feet up the hillside. So we're proposing 74.
okay, thank you.
Member Cook.
No additional questions.
Member Godwell.
No additional questions. He's gonna plant 74 trees. I think that Mr. Patel gets a medal.
Member Sergeant.
Yeah, I noticed in the application, riverfront wasn't checked off. And because this isn't riverfront, I'm wondering if this needs to be reviewed under 1058-4, and therefore there needs to be an alternative analysis. I'm also wondering about snow removal. It seems like snow removal right down the hill could be pushed into the wetland, opposite Forest Lane, and there should be a 2-year monitoring for the mortality and mitigation plantings.
Terry.
No additional comments.
Member Bell.
One comment I had, would this fall under a after the fact filing or Chuck?
Yes, I mean, it wasn't filed before the work was done, so it would be after the fact.
Nothing else then. Okay, so why don't you answer to a few of those questions, Mr. Judd, and then we'll listen to Mr. Patel if he's still on.
Okay, thank you. As far as snow removal, we do show a crushed stone shoulder, well, actually a river stone shoulder, which would be closer to the larger 2-inch diameter, a river stone that would be 6-inch deep and 2 feet wide along the entire driveway to assist with the infiltration, and also for the snow removal to be pushed off to the side, for it to be pushed all the way down the hill into the across the street into the wetland, I think is probably unlikely, because there's a flat area on both sides at the base of the driveway. There was currently, and there was previous to the Patels buying the property, there was a gravel shoulder that was used for parking and so forth, and that would be also maintained for potential snow storage there, and they would be willing for that to be a condition should the board vote to approve it. As far as an alternative analysis, I agree with David. That is something that, again, we were caught off guard because we did the stream stats and we had less than a square mile of watershed, but was corrected by Chuck that because it is labeled as a blue line on the USGS map, it's identified as perennial. So that was, again, we revised the form to include additional fees, but we did not include that alternative analysis, and we can supply that. But in a verbal explanation, there's really it's such a steep driveway to go any further sideways or in another location other than where that path was would just require additional, obviously, additional tree removal, and the slope would be, it's very steep as it is. It would not be possible to get a vehicle up there. But we will put that into a written document for alternative analysis.
Mr. Judd, is there a possibility of getting some large boulders or blocks? Because I worry, never mind somebody just coming down that hill on a snowy day. But I do get concerned that sand and everything else is eventually going to slowly get pushed into the wetland. There's no way around it. It's so too tight. So some sort of bollard system, boulders to protect that resource from being.
On the other side of the road, Mr. Chairman? Yeah, I don't see that being an issue. It is a public way, so I guess we would have to double check with the DPW, but it's certainly a good idea to have vehicular safety boulders, and if not, discourage anyone from trying to plow snow over there. Could serve that purpose as well. So not a problem. I can make a note to that effect on the plan.
Okay. I would appreciate that, yes. Okay, Chuck, anything else to add on this?
Just, we'd like to maintain the erosion control on that slope until it becomes stabilized. During construction is definitely found that when it's freshly manipulated, that's the point at which a lot of that could really erode during these summer storms.
They're a little hard to read, Chuck, but here.
Oh. Yeah, I was just saying that it'd be good to make sure that the erosion control is maintained. As this road is established, because when it's freshly disturbed, that's it's gonna be pretty erosive this summer during the storms.
I see. Understood. Okay, commissioners, anything else to add? If not, do we want to close the hearing?
Didn't we have Mr. Patel wanting to say something?
He, if I could, he's actually at the property and there's no signal down there. He sent me a text. He's saying he has no signal to be able to jump on. So I don't know if he got knocked off, but he just sent me a text. And I can tell you there is no signal at the base of that hill.
It looks like he's no longer on the call.
Okay, so we can close public comment period. Charpentier moves to close the public.
Do we have to vote on the, John gave us a verbal alternatives analysis and has agreed to put it into the note, but don't we need to approve the alternative analysis first to move forward?
That's a good call, Bill. We should. I agree. So we'll have to put forth a motion to approve the whatever you want to whatever you want to call that, but it was a verbal, I guess.
Shouldn't we have a written?
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
He has to follow through with writing on that tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, would you say, Barry, Linda?
That
I
we can
I-
accept that if he puts it into writing tomorrow and before Chuck signs the paperwork.
Is that good for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we covered that. We got the alternatives analysis. You got to get that in first morning, John?
Yeah, I'll email that into Chuck in the morning.
Okay. That'd be good. All right. Do we want to close the hearing now?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to close the hearing for NOI 0283002 at 22 Forest Lane.
For all seconds,
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes,
Yes.
Treadwell,
yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
and Member Bella.
Yes, with the condition that the alternatives analysis will come to the agent first thing in the AM. Okay,
Okay,
We
now,
good?
do, need a motion to approve?
move to approve, yep.
Charpentier moves to approve NOI 0283002 at 22 Forest Lane with the aforementioned condition of the alternatives analysis being submitted to the agent first thing tomorrow morning.
Bradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Bradwell,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
Thank you for your understanding. Appreciate it. I will get that into Chuck. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chuck, next up, did the number drop for River Road or?
I didn't check today. I'll check it here as you read it.
Okay, notice of intent 028. No DEP number at this time. 4 River Road, A Stumpy at 4 River Road LLC, raise and rebuild a single-family home, construction of an addition, pervious paver driveway, walkway and retaining wall, and riverfront area, land subject to coastal storm flowage and coastal bank. Bill Manuel of Wetlands and Land Management representing.
It did receive a NOI number. It's 3005.
Thank you. Means we can, if possible, close. Miss Manuel, you out there?
Good evening, Bill Manuel here from Wetlands and Land Management. So this is a NOI application for a tear down rebuild. The applicant is 4 River Road LLC, but that's really just a fancy name for the applicant, Hayes Stuppy, and his family, who have owned this property for about 6 generations and hope to own it for another 6 generations. The house is in pretty rough shape. The architect looked at numerous ways to preserve some of the original structure. The more they got into it, the more they found flawed, and it's come to the conclusion that it's better to tear down and start new than to try to fix and put Band-Aids on what's there. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'll start out with this existing conditions plan, and it's a little bit more clear to look at this first. So this is it's a piece of property that's at the very head of a cove adjacent to River Road. It is on the opposite side of the street from the coastal resource areas. There's a wharf wall and mud flats on the opposite side of the street, which would be over here. The FEMA flood map says there's an AE zone extending to elevation 13. So this has been survey located, and elevation 13 intersects the property right through here. Now, we all know that the dealing with policy 92-1, if there's land steeper than a 10-to-1 slope below the 100-year flood elevation, that's considered a coastal bank. So this area on the property, which is already developed with a stone driveway, walkway, landscaping, and grass, is actually considered a coastal bank. And the red line would be the limit of land subject to coastal storm flowage. We have the existing home here. There is an sort of a shed, building extension here, a shed out back, and some lawn and landscaping. And you can see the topography here. It slopes up rather steeply behind the house. There's also walkways, a porch on the west side, and then more paved walkways here. This is a pretty neat project. because, we, despite a tear down and rebuild and actually an expansion of the footprint, we've maximized the footprint over the existing features. And we've removed a lot of impervious areas on the property. So at the end of the day, there's only a net increase of 129 square feet of impervious area. And we've mitigated for that by over a factor of 8. So let me jump into the plan right now. And the first thing I'd like to show you is this little detail at the bottom of the plan here. This is 4 River Road here. As I said, it's at the very upper reaches of a cove adjacent to the Annisquam River. There is about over 600 feet of separation between the front of the house and the actual channel of the river. We have Dr. Peter Rosen, who's going to speak later after I get done, and he's going to explain to you the geology of the cove and the characterization of this area here. But I will get into the proposed work and just let you know what's going on. So we try to color code the plan. Poor & Company is the architect. They do very well at trying to make things as clear as possible. The things that we want you to key in on are blue color, which is proposed additions to the structure. Brown and yellow are existing building or existing walkways or impervious surfaces that will be removed. So the intent is to demolish the existing structure here, take that right down to the ground and rebuild that in the same footprint, and then add on this blue area back here. This will actually be, for lack of a better term, kind of a duplex structure intended for use by 2 family members. That's what the blue is here, is the sort of extension for the other unit. The yellow here, obviously you could see that it was positioned over the existing sheds and home extension, over paved walkways and such. And so, as I said, we've also utilized, incorporated a lot of pervious softscape and hardscape. That's what all this pink color is. That's all either terracing or patio surfaces that are all pervious. So we've done, both out front and out back, really maximize use of pervious cover and minimize the use of impervious cover. And that's how we achieved a small net increase of only 129 square feet of impervious area. So some of the work occurs on that coastal bank, which was already previously developed. The post-development use is entirely consistent with what is already there, driveway, landscaping, and lawn. And I think it's reasonable to conclude that if we don't have any destabilizing activities or uses on the current front of the house, which is characterized as coastal bank, then there won't be any of those destabilizing features in the post-development conditions. This purple line here, that's the elevation 13, land subject to coastal storm flowage. You could see that all of our reconstruction work and the additions are well outside that zone. There's no change to grades or conditions here that would deflect any advancing storm or rising tides in a storm event. As a matter of fact, the FEMA maps show that the entire surrounding area to the left, to right, and to the water are all mapped as elevation 13. So in an approaching or a surging tide, all areas around us are going to be inundated equally. So very minimal increase of impervious area. It is basically like any other tear down rebuild. It's on the opposite side of the road. I should mention to you that we have appropriate erosion control that's going to be installed at the edge of the property. Obviously, where we need to get into the property, that it will be a mulch stock, and we will remove that during the day and replace that at night. So in the event of any rain events at night or on weekends and such, the area is protected and it would prevent any sedimentation from going off-site and potentially across the road. It would have to cross the road about, I don't know, 25 feet of pavement. Then there's a width of grass on the opposite side of the road that's probably, I'd say 30 feet wide. If it isn't a house directly across the road, it's a width of grass, so it would be pretty unlikely that anything could reach the adjacent wharf walls. So I would like to acknowledge, well, I mentioned first that we do have that DEP file number 28-3005 that dropped, I think yesterday or late Monday. And there are no comments from DEP on that. That's always a good sign. I would like to acknowledge the email that we got from the Conservation Office that said, it suggested that maybe there's riverfront here. And we did look at that, you know, whether this could be considered riverfront right at the very beginning of the project. And we enlisted the help of Dr. Peter Rosen. He is a coastal geologist. He is a PhD, and I believe he was a professor at Northeastern University, recently retired. And he is going to explain the geology and the morphology of the cove and its proximity to the river and the fact that we're not in riverfront. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Dr. Rosen speak to you. So Chuck, you may have to let him in as a panelist.
Yep, he's promoted.
Thank you.
There we go. Start video.
Name and address.
And there we go. No, there we don't go. Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I can't see myself there, but my name is Peter Rosen. I'm a coastal geologist. I would like to talk about the geology on this particular, oh, there it is. I would like to share screen if I may. Desktop 1. Share. Okay. I am seeing it. Is anybody else seeing it?
Nope.
No. Well,
You don't have your video on.
thank you. Start video. Come on, guy.
It was on, but then it went off, Peter.
Phone. Select the camera. Nope. Well, video settings. Share screen. Full screen mode. Well, I'm not
You
sure
have to
why
put
the
your
video.
video. You have to put your video on first.
I'm on video. It's giving me many FaceTime camera, phone camera, blur my back.
Make sure the
Pardon?
camera is.
Actually, you should be able to share your screen independent of your video that shows your face. There should be a green little icon at the bottom that says share screen.
No, I've got that icon. I normally click it and it goes on. In this case, I'm getting a set of choices. FaceTime HD camera, desk view camera, phone, no, blur background, choose virtual background, choose video camera, choose avatar, video settings. Oh, now I'm looking at me. FaceTime HD camera. Mirror my video. How can I say yes, guys? Let's go. Okay. HD. I apologize for this as I scamper around here. Touch up my appearance? No. Video general.
So Peter, are you trying to pull up your
Yes.
report?
If you can pull up my report there, I believe there's 2 images. Is that in the final submission?
Yeah, let me see if I could share my screen. I just
Those
pulled it
2
from
images,
my-
if you can share the screen, and the other images I have are interesting, but not as essential. Start video.
All right, so I have your report up and I'm scrolling down to
There we go.
your figure 1.
Right. Is that figure 1? Yes, there we
Yes.
go. Okay. Well, I will begin. This is off the Annisquam River, as you know. The Annisquam River is a somewhat unusual river in that it has no freshwater input. It has saltwater input, ocean input from both ends, as you know probably better than I do, both from Annisquam Bay and through the Blinman Canal. So the tides go in both ends and the saltwater tides go out both ends. But it has, it is considered a river and a very unusual river. I realize it is not unique in that when I thought about it, there are many rivers like this controlled by bedrock with ocean connections in Maine. It's very common in Casco Bay and whatever. So it is not unique, but it is unusual and probably the only river of this site, bedrock controlled, saltwater input at both ends of what's considered to be the river. With that, we're interested in the northern end, which is what we're looking at here in this diagram. The northern end of the Annisquam River, which is on the left-hand side of the diagram, adjacent to light-colored Wingershik Beach, as you can see, there are a series of coves. Probably the best known, as you know, is Lobster Cove, right in the center of the image. Lobster Cove is a long V-shaped feature. It is geologically along a fault scarp because this is all controlled by bedrock. It is off from the main channel, which is on the left-hand side of the Annisquam River. The other major cove in this northern portion is Goose Cove on the lower right. Goose Cove is probably just a bedrock low, and rising sea level simply flooded this sort of irregular shaped body of water. There is some tidal action we can see through the bed forms in it, but it is separated from the main channel. The other cove in this northern area, much less known, is you can see on the left is labeled Annisquam Cove, and the cove is right below it. This is actually a nameless cove. I went to many people saying, what is the name of that cove? And nobody knew the name. So since it's adjacent to the Annisquam River and in the village of Annisquam, I'm temporarily, or for the moment, calling it Annisquam Cove. You can see this is a much smaller cove. It is directly adjacent to the main channel of the Annisquam River. And thank you, Bill. And as we move down, here's a photograph of the cove. This cove has some very distinctive characteristics. I had more slides I was hoping to show you, but what we can see is, first of all, the cove is largely filled with tidal flats, mud flats, or sandy mud, actually. The project is in the upper right of the diagram, off near the word locust, actually on the opposite side of the street. The area encompassing River Road, the road on the upper right, is, and all of the land to the left of it is wharfage. It probably centuries old. It's all flat, it's all fill, and the entire shoreline, as you can see, is vertical stone seawall. The virtual entire area is vertical stone seawall up to the mud flats. What's interesting about the mud flats, which is most of what you're looking at in the picture, is that it is virtually featureless. Featureless says, questions how much water is flowing. The only feature is in the upper portion of the cove. There is a broad swale, slightly darker colored, where the lower tide seems to accumulate and drain into the main river. This swale is unusual because typically on mudflats, again, you probably know, once you have flowing water, you generally have channel formation. There's almost no channel formation. So the lack of features on the mudflat and the fact that even though there's a broad area accumulating falling tides, there's no real channel, suggests that there is very little to almost no current water movement activity, which is a stark contrast to the adjacent Annisquam River channel, which is in the lower left here, which is subject to extremely high currents, 2, 3, 4 knot currents typically. The other major feature, which is of critical interest to me at least, and hopefully to you, is if you look at the label saying channel margin linear bar, just to the upper right, there's a light elongate sandbar separating the Annisquam River from the Annisquam Cove, or this cove. This is a channel margin linear bar. This is a bar that forms somewhat like a barrier beach, but as sea level, as tide level is rising, once the water goes over the bar, the velocity of the water drops suddenly. High velocity water is carrying sediment in suspension. The minute the velocity drops, the sediment drops. Do that a few thousand or a few 10,000 times, tens of thousands of times, and you end up with an accumulation like this channel margin linear bar. This is not unlike the formation of a levee on the banks of a river. Thousands of overtoppings, velocity drop, and you end up with this bar. This bar is sandy, and it separates very high velocity currents in the river channel from the cove. So the cove is distinctively different processes and morphology compared to the river. What is interesting, and it took a while to realize it, is that even though I found this to be an unusual cove, these characteristics of almost no water flow, separated by a bar, as it turns out, this bar is fits the definition in the wetlands regs 10-33 for a salt pond. A salt pond, if I can read it to you from the 10-33, is a shallow, enclosed or semi-enclosed, in this case, semi-enclosed, body of saline water that may be partially or totally restricted by barrier beach formation. Well, we've got a barrier beach-like feature. It is saline, it's semi-enclosed, and it is shallow. So therefore, this cove, which we weren't sure what to do with in the beginning, is now, we're confidently saying, is a salt pond. So, and we believe it should be treated as such, as a as this feature.
I don't know if you can hear me, Bill, but we need to move this along a little quicker. It's
Pardon?
fast. You have to move a little quicker.
I can't get the volume.
Chairman Gullah, we could not hear what you said there.
You have to move ahead a little quicker. It's
I'm
fast.
done.
I mean, we're at the other side of the actual project site, aren't we? On the mouth of the river.
Again, I had trouble hearing you.
Aren't we at, we need to move this along a little bit, is basically my comment.
Well, our point is that we don't believe there's riverfront area affecting this property. The site is over 600 feet from the channel of the river. There have been other cases where the commission, things that I've been involved in, on Lobster Cove, Goose Cove, certainly numerous on Goose Cove, where the commission acknowledged that this is not a riverfront area. And the DEP issued their file number without comment. So I'm tending to agree that they feel that this is not riverfront as well. So, that would be the end of our presentation.
Okay, thank you. It's just, we have other projects we have to look at. That being said, so if you want to, Mr. Move forward, is there anything else you wanted to add to this? Is that, because I'll move on to commissioner comments.
No, go ahead and do the comments, please.
Why don't you roll call? Let me open it for public first. Did I open up to the public? I don't think I did, Chuck, did I?
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, so let's do that first. First of all, if anyone wishes to speak for or against the project at 4 River Road, you may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 9 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, a close public comment period. All right, why don't we roll into commissioner comments?
Yep, Member Charpentier.
Yeah, the only thing I'm a little confused about is that this states that you're raising and rebuilding a single family home, but when you spoke about this, you mentioned putting in an addition, which is going to be a unit for a couple of people. So this sounds to me like it's not rebuilding a single family home, it's building a duplex, a new duplex.
Member Cook.
No additional comments.
Member Gradwell.
Additional comment.
Member Sergeant.
Yes, all dewatering must be adequately treated before being discharged, and there should be a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings, and I believe this is riverfront. Under the Riverfront Protection Act, riverfront areas are measured from the mean annual high water line. Within coastal rivers, this is the mean high tide line. Currents through any riverine system are not uniform. All riverine systems have bends and curves, as well as shallows and depths. Only man-made canals and ditches is there any uniformity of flow, and it should be noted that canals and mosquito ditches, where there is uniformity of flow, are exempt from the Rivers Protection Act. Intertidal flats are a vital part of coastal river ecosystems. Shellfish and other benthic invertebrates filter water of impurities and are food for finfish and shorebirds. The Riverfront Protection Act protects those interests. Shellfish and other benthic invertebrates cannot settle where there is a strong current or turbidity. Their essential habitat is along the intertidal flats, where the current is more gentle and the substrate is suitable. Not sure if it's germane, but what has been presented is a flawed analysis. This cove does have a name, and it's not featureless. This cove is named Stage Cove because there were stages for the drying of cod located on the southwest side. Gloucester aerial imagery of Stage Cove at low water clearly shows an accurate depiction of significant gradient differences, 3 to 4 feet. In the northeast corner, there's a culvert that discharges groundwater and street runoff into the cove year-round. This creates a shallow channel along the northern shore. There's also a drainage ditch along the southwestern shore, just below the salt marsh to the Innisquam River. The substrate is sandy by the Innisquam Channel and muddy by the culvert outfall. Most of the substrate within the culvert is sand-mud mix. Also, this location is where the shellfish samples are taken by the Division of Marine Fisheries to determine the presence or absence of paralytic shellfish poisoning or red tide within the Innisquam River. And again, under the Rivers Protection Act, riverfront areas and coastal areas are measured from the high tide line. Thank you.
Member Materi.
Yeah, it's an interesting analysis of the riverfront. I kind of disagree with some of the conclusions. It looks from the aerial photography that there is a defined channel in that part of the cove that's sort of darker in color. I just looking at Google Street View very quickly, and it shows the view at high tide, and it does not look like there's any kind of lower flow in the cove from the rest of the river. And I would just say the comparison to Goose Cove, I would defer to other commissioners that have served longer than I have, but at least the one case I remember from Goose Cove on Denison Street, at the very end of Goose Cove, we did treat it as riverfront area. So I don't see the rationale for treating this differently. So I think I would, despite the thorough analysis, which, thank you for providing, I think it should be riverfront as well.
Bill?
I think they covered it. No further comments. Okay. A short rebuttal, and then I think we're going to have to continue. Obviously, we didn't get to a point where we'd be able to vote on the alternatives analysis. So whatever comment you want to follow up on right now before we move on to our next project, you're more than welcome to do it.
Yeah, very quickly, I'll just show you a little diagram here. This is what Chuck sent us to suggest that there was riverfront jurisdiction. And I just went through my files. This would be DEP mouth of river on the Annisquam. The commission's familiar with this. And I went through my files and picked out the closest ones to this site, particularly ones on Lobster Cove. This was 24, 25, 39, and I think 48, I believe, River Road. These are all varying distances away from the channel, but look at these two here, similar distance away from the edge of the channel. And this is what the commission, this goes back over a span, pushing 20 years. So the commission's been pretty consistent that Lobster Cove, Goose Cove, I would suspect similar coves, and I'm glad to hear this one has a name, Stage Cove. That coves are not part of the riverine system. Rivers have to have unidirectional flow. They have to have a gradient. Frankly, this doesn't have any gradients tidally affected. But the coves themselves, they just are an embayment off of the river. And this particular site is over 600 feet from the river channel. And I can't in my wildest dreams imagine that when they wrote the riverfront regs, they were trying to capture things that were 600 feet away from the actual river channel. So I would conclude my remarks there.
But right now, I think we need a little, maybe the rest of your slideshow will help us understand it a little bit. About this time, I think we have to continue. Did you hear me? I'm sorry. Bill, did you hear me?
No, Mr. Gull, I'm having real trouble hearing just you this evening.
That's usually I'm the one yelling and screaming, so that's not good. No, we obviously have to continue, correct? At this point, you don't want to vote.
I would think, yeah, we should probably continue and consider how we're going to approach this. And we feel very strongly. We have obviously some very strong evidence we presented tonight to back our position. So, but our team will regroup in the next 3 weeks or so before the next meeting, and if we have anything additional to add, we'll submit that. So let's continue this to July 17th. That's the next meeting, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we do that, could we hear the agent's comments?
Chuck, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, since I've been here, we've treated Goose Cove, we treated Lobster Cove, all these areas along that river as part of the riverfront area. All of those coves do drain twice a day to the ocean. They meet the definition of a river. And, in these tidal rivers, the riverfront area extends 200 feet from the annual high tide line. So, per the regs and per what we have, how we've treated them here, I believe that this would be riverfront starting at mean high tide line. And the fact that DEP hasn't commented yet, they often take at least 2 to 3 weeks after they assign a number before they will actually get their comments out, because the reviewer isn't assigned until the number is assigned. So they probably haven't even reviewed this yet.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. All right, you want to move this?
Yep. The Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0283005 at 4 River Road to the commission meeting of July 17th, 2024.
And Rodwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Gretel,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes,
Member Lettieri,
Yes,
and Member Gallo.
Yes. Okay, gentlemen, no, 2 weeks. Okay. Can everyone else hear me?
not very well.
Okay, I wonder what that is. Okay, I'll speak louder. Okay, next up, notice of intent 028, no DEP number, 78 High Popples Road and 4 Eagle Road, Kathy Clancy, High Popples Nominee Trust, vegetative removal of landscaping and buffer zone to BBW, Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Lands Management Representative.
Okay, unfortunately, we do not have a file number for this one. And this is the simplest project of the evening, so I'll share my screen. The owner, Kathy Clancy, I believe is dialed in from Europe somewhere. If there's any comments that she can be available, but this is fairly simple and I'll go through it quickly. She owns 78 High Popples and the property at 4 Eagle Road. There's a little wetland in the back of the property. I put 4 flags to define the closest wetland to the work area. Right now, it's just sort of a mishmash between the properties, and Kathy is looking to create more of a formalized, let's call it a living fence, if you will. So we've commissioned Kate Wiggin to come up with a planting plan. And right now, this area is comprised mostly of the ground cover is escaped ornamental ivy. The shrubbery is mostly honeysuckle or small growth of Norway maple. The overstory, I believe, is 100% Norway maple. A lot of it appears to be self-propagated from, just dropping samaras and things are sprouting. You can see that over the years, there are trees that are very close to each other. Some have broken limbs, some are codominant trunks, some are growing right next to each other, and they have misshapen crowns. They have no branches on one side, and the branches on the other side are all loaded, adding weight to the other side of the tree. Simple enough project. Create this living fence here. We're going to remove 5 of these Norway maple trees. They are the dashed lines, the ones that'll be removed. And then we're going to add in 6 additional trees. So you're getting better than 1-to-1 tree replacement. There'll be a mix of perennials and perennial plants plus shrubs and stuff. And there's a whole plant list over here. These are all native species as far as I can tell. It occurs in the buffer zone. That's why we have put a 12-inch diameter mulch stock here to define the work zone. And this should be a fairly simple landscape project. There is a new sump pump discharge we would like to install in this location here. Presently, the owner throws out a corrugated black plastic pipe across the lawn, and it sits there basically all spring and summer. And it's unsightly, and you have to move it every time you mow the grass. So this will become a subsurface perforated pipe to a discharge, like it's just a stone sump area within the new landscape. So appropriate erosion control, native plants, replacing trees that were taken down. All the trees are non-natives anyway. So again, fairly simple project. I think we would have been able to close it had we had a file number tonight.
Okay, thank you for that. Next up, I'll open up a public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 7 High Popples Road and 4 Eagle Road may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 7 attendees and there are no hands up.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I close the public comment period. Next up, Commissioner roll call comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Cook,
I just, there's, even though they're Norwell maples and we consider them an invasive, they're pretty substantial trees that are taking down. There any chance that we can up the size of some of the trees that we're going to be replacing?
Member Gradwell,
No comment.
Member Sergeant,
I'd like a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings.
Member Lettieri,
One question, the ivy, ground covering, the low ground covering in the, Eagle Road lot. What is gonna replace that? Is that just gonna be turned to lawn?
Member Bill,
Similar question that Bill had. I would appreciate a little bigger tree if possible for the replacement. That's it. Okay. Anything else? Chuck, anything to add on this?
my only real concern is, having a drain that's heading towards another property that's at a lower elevation, but they own that property too, so I guess it's, creating an issue for themselves. It does create more flooding there.
All right, Mr. Manuel, you want to respond to those comments?
Yeah, we're gonna have to continue to, so I will check with the landscape designer about the size of the trees that she's suggested. And replacing the ivy, that is not going to be lawn. All of that is going to be the mix of perennials and shrub cover that's listed out on the plan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll see you in a few weeks. Want to move that?
Yep, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 028, no DEP number at 78 High Popples Road and 4 Eagle Road to the commission meeting of July 17th, 2024.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member here, oh, sorry, Member Bill.
Yes. Okay, we'll see you in a few weeks.
All right, thank you.
Next up, notice of intent, 0283004 Niles Pond Road, Association of Eastern Point Residents, installation of a catch basin and underground drainage pipe and land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to Niles Pond. John Judd, KP Consultants Inc. representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, John Judd, again, representing the Association of Eastern Point Residents for this upgrade for a, thanks, Chuck. I was going to bring mine up, but that's perfect. This is a section, those of you familiar with, that's fine if you want to use yours. It's basically installing a catch basin that has been historically used. You can see to the left of the screen where just about at the end in Niles, there's an existing pipe that goes across that drains this area that is basically adjacent to Niles Pond. So as you come into Eastern Point, you make that the right turn going up, the one-way turn after you go through the pillars and go along the causeway. You'll see Eastern Point Boulevard there, and then you come back around on Niles Pond Road. This is all one way, just to give everyone a feeling for where we are. And then you have Niles Pond Road on your right as you're driving back out to Farrington. In any event, this whole area has been flooded this past spring and previous winters due to the failure of that catch basin that exists near the end in Niles Pond Road. I opened up the catch basin and it actually has a smaller pipe in it and it is not functional. So what we did is we did a survey of the actual edge of pavement, and we've determined that the low point is where we're showing this proposed shallow catch basin to basically deal with that seasonal runoff that comes down in this area to allow it to, as it does now, make its way over toward the pond without having any safety issues, because what we're having is during freezing conditions, a sheet of ice across the roadway there. So those of you who have gone out to Eastern Point and saw it this past January, it's not a good situation. And we're just trying to mimic what was already there through that other catch basin, which is no longer functioning. And that's really the extent of the project. It's we do have proposed temporary erosion control sock along the lower end. We're not proposing much, if any, vegetation removal. You can see there is a brush line located. That's the squiggly line, and that would be basically just to allow that pipe to daylight to the elevation. It's a very shallow pipe, and you can see the actual catch basin structure is only 36 inches in diameter. And very shallow. So I can answer any questions you might have at this time.
Okay, sir. I'll open up a public comment first. Anyone in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at Niles Pond Road may do so by hitting your raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 7 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, I close public comment period. Next up would be commissioner roll call comments.
Member Charpentier.
No comment.
No comments.
Gradwell.
No comment.
Member Sargent.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the existing drain and catch basin is proposed to be removed. And if not, why not have a drainage swale connect the existing system and snake the clogged drain pipe? And if not, and you're going to be installing it, you know, at that low point and water does connect there, how is work on the pond side of the road going to be conducted, you know, within the wetland itself? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm wondering where the discharge from the pipe will go. Will that be infiltrated into the ground, or will that be on the surface? Will that reach Niles Pond? And will that discharge impact the water quality of Niles Pond? And if so, are there any options for treatment that are available?
Nothing further from me. So everyone spoke. Who's up next?
Okay, first, I'm sorry, was there,
No,
should I
that's
go
okay.
ahead and address Mr. Sargent Vetri's comments?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Sargent asked why we can't, well, whether we could divert that swale over toward that catch basin, and that existing catch basin rim, we have some spot grades on the plan, Dave, but it's not going to be able to drain out that area because it's set at a higher elevation. So whether it's going to be removed or not, I can't answer that. But if the commission feels like it should be removed or just abandoned, we're open to those suggestions. But that the intent was to get this recessed to achieve the outflow of that surface runoff to get to the other side. As far as Peter's comments, is there any way to treat that runoff, and will it go directly on the surface? It's going to be discharged above the pond, but not into the actual water level itself, because we have spot grades on the plan showing the located water elevation and location during that wet time this spring. And we're going to be extending it just to the point where it would allow for gravity flow from the other side of the road. So we do have the temporary erosion control. We are going to loam and seed that, any vegetation or any excavation, which would be done by hand. I think, Dave, you had that question. How is that going to be done? It's only a 6-inch diameter PVC pipe that's going to be discharged from this, proposed to be discharged from this catch basin. So that would all be done by hand, and there's no reason to have any machinery in there. And again, it's not that far off the pavement anyway. But it would not be discharged directly into the water body, but just above that elevation to allow for gravity flow. And it would be loamed and seeded as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, commissioners?
Yeah,
like-
so, sorry, Linda, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask to hear from the agent, but we can go forward with that later.
So I'm guessing there's gonna be road salt that's draining into the catch basin and potentially road salt contaminated stormwater that's gonna flow out this drainage pipe. And that's gonna be deposited above the pond and then flow by gravity towards the pond. So there need to be some sort of filtration structure, infiltration structure, some sort of stormwater structure at the end of that pipe to treat it before it reaches the Niles Pond waters?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, this is a very flat area. You know, it's a very level road. As far as whether there's salt used to de-ice this area, if any salt is used here, which I really doubt it would be because it's such a sensitive area, anyone that drives by sees the wildlife and the different vegetation that's there. But again, it's a private way, and they, I'm sure, would accept any type of prohibition. I don't think it's needed to have salt here. If it is laid put down on the surface now, it's going to just make its way right into the pond anyway, because it's all flat and it's that road just basically floods in that area. So if salt is being used, it's going in there now. I really don't believe that they would use that in this sensitive area, and they would be acceptable to any condition to prohibit that and perhaps put signage or whatever it is that this commission would need. But there's really not a lot of opportunity here to do much more than to allow for this small diameter pipe just to periodically let that drain. You know, short of if you wanted some kind of a filter mitt or something at the end of the pipe, we could probably come up with something. But vegetation is typically the best way to allow for nutrient uptake.
I would be happy. You did mention, Mr. Judd, even if it's not going to do much, maybe having one sign out there, actually no salt area, would be helpful at a minimum.
I will definitely let them know, and you can certainly put that in your order if that's the desire.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything else to add?
So so you said vegetation is got the best infiltration medium. I'm assuming you're depending on the existing vegetation that's there. There's not going to be any new vegetation planned to be planted at the end of the pipe.
Just loam and seed, because again, we're not going into that. There's a thicker shrub layer that's there now between the actual shoulder and the pond itself, and that's not intended to be taken out. It's just enough to get what we call daylighting by hand to allow that pipe just to get what's needed to get gravity flow. If you felt like if the commission felt like they wanted some specific vegetation there, we could certainly add some, or you know, some type of a proprietary device for like a filter mitt or something to allow for sediment. But the main thing is to not obstruct hydraulic flow. That was the intent.
Peter, any of those sound like an option to you, or?
I don't know. I base it for everybody. Perhaps a filter mitt. You know, I don't know if that would filter contaminants or anything in stormwater as opposed to sediment, but yeah, I'm not, you know, an expert in this.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners?
I
Again,
would like to hear the agent's comments.
Chuck, anything to add?
I mean, I guess a lot of the area around the pond is wetland, and a lot of those roads around that pond are essentially driving through wetland. But you don't have wetland delineated, you just have the edge of the pond. I'm wondering if you actually looked at, you know, soils and stuff there. I imagine they're going to be hydric soils. You know, I guess, you know, it'd be nice to see some native vegetation going in or that other vegetation's coming out, you know, to at least restore some native vegetation in that area. That's probably, my guess, could be wetland.
How about that, Mr. Judd? We're thinking about the vegetation around that area.
No problem. We could certainly add some vegetation there that might be better suited. You know, for that. You know, it is a wet area. I agree with Chuck. You know, our intent was to, from an engineering point, to make sure that we got that pipe above the water level. To obviously, we don't want to put in a pipe that's going to be submerged and have hydraulic backup. So there's certainly an opportunity here to add some native, you know, grasses or you know, other appropriate vegetation to at that discharge point to allow for nutrient uptake, and whether there is salts or oils and so forth to assist with that.
And the pipe that's going in, the existing pipe extends all the way to the pond, but this pipe will not extend to the pond. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just to the point where we show it.
Okay. I guess in that sense, it's, you know, it's a bit better because it's not going to be discharging directly into the pond. You know, hopefully the function of the wetland will help clean the water up. It wasn't being cleaned up when it was going straight into the pond. So.
All right. Anybody else on any comments, proposals? Otherwise, shall we close the hearing?
Charpentier moves to close the hearing for NOI 0283004 Niles Pond Road.
Cadwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes,
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gredwell. Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
And Member Villa.
Yes. Okay, let's move to approve.
Charpentier moves to approve NOI 0283004 Niles Pond Road with the aforementioned condition of adding native vegetation at the discharge point. And I'm thinking that Mr. Sargent would want some monitoring on those plantings.
Cadwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes,
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gredwell.
Yes.
Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
And Member Villa.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
you too.
All right. We're moving into certificates of compliance world, correct?
Yes.
Okay. First up is RCOC 0282783 155 Ringer Sheik Road. Are we ready to vote on that? All right, sounds like nobody cared. Want to move to approve that?
Yep, Charpentier moves to approve RCOC 0282783 at 155 Wingersheek Road.
Cadwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes,
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gredwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
And Member Villa.
Yes. Okay. Next up, violations. Enforcement order 404 Stanwood Point. I believe we have someone here for that, correct?
Yes, we have Mary Rimmer and Meredith Fine from both here.
Okay.
Good evening. For the record, it's Mary Rimmer, Rimmer Environmental Consulting. I'm here with Meredith Fine, attorney for Stanwood Point LLC, and I think she has some statements you'd like to make to start off.
Just very briefly, good evening, everybody. We do not have the plan that we need here. The surveyor who's working on the plan has been sick. And so despite our very best efforts, I would say extremely energetic efforts by Mr. Pellich, we were not able to get the plan that you need. So I apologize for that. I wanted to just quickly give a little context here that I didn't give the last time. And then I'll turn it back over to Mary to go over the conditions. Mr. Pellich and Mary were in contact, regular contact with the previous conservation agent. It was all by phone. But they were working with her and she was on site. And then, as most of you know, she left and there was this gap of time before we were lucky enough to get Chuck to come here. And in that gap, things fell through the cracks. But one thing I want to emphasize to you is that Mr. Pellich is trying to comply. He may be doing it imperfectly, but his goal here is to comply. It's not to ignore what the commission is looking for. We didn't need a 401 license in the first place, and this is the big thing that is of concern to us. Most of the conditions are fine, and I think some of them are underway already. Mary will go into that in more detail. But it is condition number 10 that we're concerned about. We left the last meeting feeling like everybody was on the same page, that time was of the essence, that Mr. Pellich is ready to go, raring to go, and having to apply for more licenses would obviously slow us down significantly. But also we didn't need those licenses in the first place, and it's not clear to us why we need them now. So this has been an imperfect process. We recognize that. But we're getting the right result. And we just want to address, here we are, and we just want to address the problem as fast as we can. That has been Mr. Pellich's goal from the moment that this issue was brought to his attention. So now I'll turn it over to Mary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Meredith. So I'll just share my screen. And I know at the last meeting, I went through sort of a sequence of events and showed where the plantings had occurred previously and the reporting that had been done under the original planting when that was completed. So since then, we have received the enforcement order. We've reviewed it, as Meredith mentioned. Most of the items we don't have any quibble with. I think there was some language about impact to tidal flats that I feel wasn't the case in this situation, that we didn't have tidal flats. We did have an order of resource area delineation originally done for all these lots, the 3 in the row. And there weren't tidal flats that were identified at the time. And I think just the definition of tidal flat would make it in any restoration of tidal flat that might be needed is inconsistent with salt marsh. So I'm interpreting the area of impact as being entirely within salt marsh, not in tidal flat. And so I just wanted to make that clarification. So with that, I'll share the screen and just give you an update of what we've done since the last meeting and what we hope to be able to do. Unfortunately, the timeframes that were provided in the enforcement order, we weren't able to fully comply with because the surveyors have been out to the site. They did the requested survey. We just don't have the draftsman to actually put it into a plan. So these are some photos that were taken at the site on Friday. And we had the original building staked out. So you can see on the riverside, there was this was the river facing side. There was a little deck off the back there. We'll scroll down to show some other photos. You can see from this view, this is the river facing side of the building. And since the building was taken down, we've had migration of salt marsh vegetation into the site, which is encouraging. That is continuing to occur. And you can see it's partially within the sand area that we had previously installed in this area. And if you remember, the location was kind of a bowl and it was deeper in the middle. So it's logical that the vegetation would begin to encroach on the margins. And so you can see there's been a substantial increase in vegetation here, which is encouraging. The surveyors also located this edge of vegetation here, so we can recalculate how much new vegetation needs to occur. There's some additional photos here. This silt sock back here is actually at the limit of the salt marsh as it was flagged originally. And you can see there's a little bit of remnant. There's a flag right here, and it came along that if we extend the salt marsh, we come along here and go right in front of this rock here. This is just a view of the undisturbed marsh. This is there was a connector building that extended from one on lot 3A across to the one on lot 2A. And you can see, since that's been taken down as well, the high marsh has come right up and just even beyond a little bit the original building location. All encouraging. And we did some soil testing just to see, what the depth of the material was. I'll provide a more detailed report, but I thought it was just interesting to me to see, this is the material obviously that was put down. There's in places up to 9 inches in the middle deeper part. This was the most recent material that was put down. It looks like this coarse sand here, which is already it turned black from organics, was probably what the original layer looked like. And then there's lighter sand below that. You can see where we're starting to get into natural material. The site is interesting because the history of the property means that there is as past activities, including the construction of a beach when it was a camp. And so there was regularly sand deposited near the area, and there's also sand that overwashes during flood events. So you'll see in some of these other course, this is an example of what the native undisturbed soil looks like. And we have about 4 or 5 inches of kind of coarse, dark, mixed sand mixed with rocks and roots and things down into the peat. So even in the really lush undisturbed portions of the site, you still had, a coarse sandy base at the top. And then this is another on the other side. So that was on the downstream side. This is on the upstream side. Again, we have, vegetation and a kind of a peat layer. And then we have sand underneath that, and then more peat layers. A couple of these, you can see there's layers, and this is down 14, 16 inches in the native marsh right there. So there's a history of layering of sand. And so that's why we're proposing that particular substrate. And then I just wanted to show you just this image, which was included in the response to the enforcement order. This is the building here that was taken down right across here. And this is all beach, and this is a big beach. This was the original house that was moved across the street. And it had a pool out in front, but a lot of changes, a lot of activity there. There's also a lot of material that was added in, bits of concrete, construction debris over years. It was, once the buildings were removed and you could really get access to it, Mr. Pellich removed old sewer pipes, bituminous material that was used to backfill. There's a lot of really poor quality material that was put in there. So since then, he's made significant improvements, and the intention is to continue to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing now and just make one other point that I think might be relevant to this enforcement order, but certainly for the next item for lot 4 that's on your agenda is that I mentioned this to Chuck today, that there's some legislation that's pending right now in the State House that's part of a kind of an omnibus bill from the governor. It's an economic stimulus bill that contains a whole lot of different aspects to it. And one of them is to add a new tolling period, not unrelated to COVID, but starting January 1st, 2023, any projects that have a valid permit as of that date have getting an automatic 2-year extension. So we're looking at that because it's going to be retroactive and it's going to affect some of these projects, the other projects I'm sure that you're looking at. There's not, obviously this isn't the case right now. It is not blah at the moment. And so I think that maybe if this does change, we can modify the enforcement order to that effect and eliminate the language regarding it being work done outside of a valid order of conditions, because that may change in the future. But in any event, I just wanted to point that out. It's expected to be signed. There apparently is very little opposition. It's already been approved in the House and or in the Senate, and it has a vote tomorrow in the House, and then they do their committee, and then by the end of the month, it's expected to be enacted. So just throwing it out there as information, again, it may be more pertinent to your next item on the agenda, but somewhat relevant to this one as well. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions, roll call comments on commissioners? Chuck, do you want to do roll call comments for the commissioner?
Yep, sorry, I was muted. Member Charpentier,
No comment.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Bradwell,
No comment.
or Sergeant.
Yeah, thank you very much for the soil augers. It really does tell a story. And we can make up all kinds of things looking at the surface, but the soils are there, and it tells us a lot. I think the inclusion of land containing shellfish was because the shellfish constable said that some of the sand had migrated down onto the shellfish flat, and so that's why that was included. So I think that's an issue between yourself and the shellfish constable to clear that up. But outside of that, again, thank you for the soil augers.
Sure.
Okay.
I think I have a couple of provisions to add to the enforcement order. One, prohibiting advertising the property as having a beach in the restoration area. Two, requiring removal of any such advertisements. And three,
I'm sorry, could you, I didn't hear what you said for the second one.
Sorry, the second one is requiring removal of any such advertisements that are currently up and posted. And three, requiring the owner to inform any tenants or prospective tenants in writing that they are not to use the restoration area as a beach.
And Member Villa.
Yeah, I agree. It's starting to look good. It was great to see the augers. It actually seems to be healing quite quickly over there. That's wonderful, wonderful to see. So I'm happy with what's been done today. Thank you. So that's everyone. Just fine. Did you want to add something to this?
Well, can we have some clarity on whether condition 10 is going to stay or go?
But I think the issue, you're saying that you didn't need a permit before, but the previous order of conditions was not proposing to put fill into the resource area. So basically there's work that's been done that wasn't proposed or approved. And generally fill in a wetland is going to require permitting. So that's why I put it in there. And I think there needs to at least be a conversation with, folks that do that permitting to find out if they might require some after the fact permitting for that fill. I think moving forward with planting stuff is maybe, a bit premature if that fill is going to have to come out, maybe determine that fill can't be there. So I guess, it's kind of a big question mark in my mind as to whether or not that's permissible. It was not approved under the original order of conditions. So that's where a lot of this violation is stemming from.
Right.
Is
understood.
The addition of that fill. Okay.
Understood. Mary can get into this better than I can, but if we have to apply for the license and submit a new NOI, Is that what you're talking about?
Not necessarily, no. I think, you know, DEP has some options for how to deal with this, and they will be copied with this enforcement order ultimately, if they haven't already been. There's not an issue with Army Corps 401, 404 permit because we're not exceeding the 5,000 square foot threshold. The Mass Water Quality Certificate, which is linked to the Army Corps permit, it doesn't have that 5,000 square foot threshold, but they also have exemptions for restoration activities. And they also have an ability to take enforcement action similar under the Wetlands Protection Act. So they may simply want to, if they do feel some action is necessary, they can piggyback on the enforcement order, issue their own enforcement order under 401 as part of this as well. We haven't had any discussions about this. It sort of depends on whose desk it lands on at DEP. So I was waiting for, for some clarity on that and when it was going to be issued. I could reach out to folks there and explain, what the scenario is. It's pretty clear to me that what needs to happen. So I'm not sure that they're going to want to, they may want to retroactive paperwork application to, to document this, but I don't know that they're necessarily going to want to hold it up because, it's possible that this material could be lost in the system in a big coastal event or something. It's unlikely. It's settled in nicely, but, we can certainly continue to work with them on that issue.
It's just not clear to me whether the language as it's written now requires us to do anything.
Yep, just to investigate it, I think at this point. And we have contacted the nursery that supplies most of the Northeast with these wetland plants. They're actually in New Jersey, so that's one of the things I wanted to mention to you is it's still as local as we can get. They're the major supplier. After Hurricane Sandy, they became the major supplier for this. And because this seed is very mobile up and down the coast through the river systems and everything, it is pretty widespread. So there isn't really a concern necessarily that you get a different local genotype or anything like that. So I think we're in good shape. I know the Northeast Wetland Restoration and some other the big groups that do salt marsh restoration rely entirely on the nursery and they said they have the plants available and within a week of ordering we can have them on site.
So does Chuck, do you agree, Chuck, that this number 10 doesn't, what do you think number 10 requires us to do?
I think you at least need to have a conversation with the folks to deal with 401 permit.
Okay.
Find out if they're, okay with it as it is, or if they're going to require some retroactive permitting, or there's a potential that they may say this isn't permittable.
But it doesn't stop us from doing the work.
Well, I mean, have we seen the final restoration plan yet?
No.
Are we still waiting?
You have not seen the final restoration plan yet
So
because
I
we don't
think,
have that report. So we will be back to you at the next meeting, presumably when we have that available.
okay. And then once we have that, I'd like to run it past the different agencies that have interest there and get their input.
All right, anything else? Ms. Roma, that's fine, anything else?
Thank you. No, I'm all set. Thank you so much.
Commissioners, anything else? Okay. I guess we'll see you in a couple of weeks. A few weeks.
Have a
17.
good fiesta.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
all right, thank you. Thank you for the update. All right, sure. Fort Hill Ave.
Well, we have the issue too of Forest Stanwood Point. I know Mary had said that there's this potential additional tolling period. But until that is, passed, and in effect, I think we still have to treat it as an expired order of conditions. So if no work is going to occur down there, then I guess there's no violation. But if work occurs down there, currently there's an expired order of conditions.
Right.
Understood.
Yep, we'll pass that on, that work is discontinued until there's resolution on that issue, either for the extension of the, the tolling or a new application.
Okay.
So we hope to have that information of, in the next, maybe not the next meeting, but certainly the meeting after that, so.
All right, Commissioners, anything else to add on before Stanwood Point? Anything else? Okay. All right, Ms. Rimmer, unless you're up for Fort Hill Ave, I think you're excused.
I am not, but there's a 131 Wingersheik, one of the Wingersheik.
Oh, yeah, 137.
I think that's been continued until your July 17th meeting, is that correct?
That's 139 Wingersheik.
139.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so back to Fort Hill Ave. Where are we with that, John?
That one I had left on as a placeholder. We were still waiting to hear the resolution with the adjacent property that had some of the damage occur there. So they're still in talks with the neighbor there. They haven't had any resolution there. So nothing new to update.
Okay. Well, Atlantic Road.
We should have Mark Arnold here. Mark Arnold is here to give us an update there.
Hello, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Name and address for the record, sir.
My name is Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting LLC, here on behalf of Anthony Galligari for 227 Atlantic Ave or 6 Black Backshore Place in Gloucester, DB file 282753.
Okay, brief description.
This is Atlantic Road, correct?
Yeah, why were you? I think he's.
Sorry,
Yeah.
did I misspeak? Did I misspeak Atlantic Road versus Atlantic Ave?
Yeah, everybody does actually.
Okay.
Yep. Street, Ave, and road.
And ocean.
That too.
Chuck, do you want me to proceed with kind of a summary of what we've done so far and go from there?
Yeah, I believe the commission I should have had a chance to review potentially the what you'd submitted. But if you want to just give us a brief update, kind of where you're at and kind of what.
Great, thank you so much. So we completed a site walk in regards to the enforcement order. We walked the entire property, the whole perimeter, everything you could see that was disturbed historically, walking into the woods a little bit to make sure nothing else was damaged. So did a full site recon to evaluate kind of what happened on the property. We walked through the issues issued in the itemized in the enforcement order, to figure out what we could summarize and what was there. So starting with the easier area, which is really the wetland replication area, we reviewed the replication area. We agreed that it needs to be rebuilt in its entirety. There's the main issue is hydrology. The other issue is just good soils to create an area for wetlands to have good organic matter along with hydrological connections to the natural wetland, as well as just good media for planting and seed to be able to take and to create a dominance and mimic the wetland characteristics of the wetland that were impacted by the widening of the common driveway for the 3 houses. So as part of that, we did put together a full remediation plan, which basically walks through all the steps of what would be done. The first criteria is that a wetland scientist with at least 5 years experience building wetland replication areas would need to be on site for all the work. We've found that that's the biggest issue is when there's not oversight by a wetland scientist who has more than 5 years experience. It can be challenging to make sure that wetland replication is built right. That's a recommendation by Mass DEP actually. So I was the one who did the site work, and I've been building replications for 9 years now. So when I first walked the site, I could see the topography was definitely something that was impacting hydrology. We did augers to look at soils. Soils were definitely very coarse, loamy material. Organic matter seemed to be lacking in the terms of getting 12 to 20%, which is what Mass DEP recommends there. The one thing that I think is important that was not really mentioned in the enforcement order per se, but the fact is our recommendation is that there are trees in the replication area itself and along the upper perimeter where grading has to occur to get the topography to be hydrologically connected to the wetlands. We do need to take some trees down. That's just to lower the grade. The trees that are there are just too high to create the hydrology that you need to get the square footage that is suitable to make this wetland function as it needs to function. So that was one item we did note that wasn't necessarily mentioned in the enforcement order, but we did feel needed to be brought to the attention of the commission, was the fact that we do need to take down some of the trees that are there that were they tried to preserve, but really in terms of creating a wetland that's going to comply with the standards and to Mass DEP's guidelines, we believe it's important that those trees come down so that way we can actually grade the area appropriately. So the plan walks through everything from grading to importing soil testing, soil organic content. Again, planting. Our recommendation is we transplant the plants that are currently there, move them out of the replication area, regrade it, rebuild it, put the transplanted plants back in place, and then replant the area with new plantings per the original plan. That would mean you'd get the original plantings that originally proposed plus some extra transplants if they survive. That way you ensure that you have actually the plantings that you wanted installed actually there healthy versus hoping that the transplants actually work. Seed mix would be your typical New England wetland seed mix. We would also recommend using an upland buffer zone seed mix for the areas along the edge on the upgradient side that are going to be disturbed as part of that work. So that way it's restored. So that's the first nutshell of the replication plan. I can go into more detail if there are questions there. The second portion of the enforcement order has to do with the work in the buffer zone. So from what we reviewed, we definitely felt there were areas in the buffer zone that did get disturbed that were outside the approved limit of work. The original plan was kind of crude about how the work in the buffer zone at the ends of the roadway were kind of be worked, but from reviewing the plan, it appeared that no work was supposed to occur in the buffer zone except where the erosion controls were shown. So from reviewing that plan and the site conditions, we did feel there was work outside the buffer zone. And so the as-built plan that was provided to the commission did need to be updated in terms of showing the actual limit of disturbance and limit of clearing, which would give us a better global scope of what buffer zone was disturbed and then how best to restore that basically once we know the square footages and whether or not we need to permit something that may be built there that would need to be retained for some reason, for example, potentially like the electrical box for the underground utilities. So we did put together in our letter to the commission a list of kind of what we're planning on doing for a survey. And we hope that this conversation tonight would be good to confirm that if there's any other details the commission wants on the as-built plan per se. This is an interim as-built plan, I should say. An interim as-built plan of the site. What other information the commission would like to see? We'd like to get that information collected by the surveyor so that way we can get an interim as-built for everything. And then when we do a final as-built, there'll be a shorter list of things that they catch in terms of restoration of the work when we look to go for closing out the order of conditions when it occurs. At this point, we're hoping that we can do all the restoration work and remediation work of the wetland replication area under the enforcement order. That's a quick summary. I can do more detail if you want, but I don't want to take.
Okay, why don't you go, why don't we do, you want to do roll call comments?
Yep. Member Charpentier.
Yeah, I'd like to know how many trees are coming down and whether or not you're planning to put in new trees somewhere else.
Mark, if I may jump in, Mark, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I just want, the normal procedure here is you listen to all our comments, write the comments down, and then we'll wrap it up.
I'm writing comments down and I'll stay quiet till I'm asked to answer.
Member Cook.
Same thing as Linda. the number of trees, and then are we definitely going to be putting replacements in? And where?
Member Grevel,
No further comment.
member Sergeant,
I agree with the previous commissioners, and I thought it was a pretty good restoration plan, but I noticed on page 10 of the replication plan, it referenced that you would inform the Hopkinton Conservation Commission, and I'd rather you inform the Gloucester Conservation Commission.
member Siri,
Yeah, in that split rail fence that's shown in the photographs, I assume that's going to remain as a sort of a boundary or a buffer from any kind of people entering or activity entering this replicated wetland area. So if you can confirm that, thank you.
member Grevel.
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce off Peter for a minute there and actually suggest that we get some sort of monument, something more than that split rail fence, because I think this is gonna take quite a while to restore. So whether it's signage or boulders or concrete piers, I think we need a little more indication that this is gonna be here for a while. Chuck, anything to add?
I'm very pleased to see this. I mean, compared to what we received previously for the site, seems like you know what you're doing and have a pretty good plan together. The one thing I noticed that, you know, for the upland area, it's only, you know, ground cover and shrub type species. I didn't see any trees proposed there, and there were definitely trees in that upland area that were removed. So maybe that would be an area, you know, to add some of that strata back in there. I know there's a bunch of arborvitaes there, but maybe like to see something that's, you know, more indigenous to that area included in that upland mix.
All right, I think that's everybody. So I don't know if you want to respond, Mark, or?
No, those were great comments. So, in terms of tree removal, there is inside the replication area, there's one large tree. Based on the photographs, I'm guessing that's about 18-inch diameter, and then there's another tree right next to it that's leaning back towards the upland area, about 12 inches. Those are the two trees. There's some smaller shrubs / maybe saplings. I don't remember the species. About 4 inches in diameter there at all. Those are the ones that are there. I think we'll be able to save the white pines that are in the buffer zone itself based on the fence, because the fence is following the limit of the replication area. So in terms of trees, that's what's being removed. In terms of planting, the original plan didn't plan to propose to replant trees in the wetland replication area. In terms of that, I think that was the reason why that was consistent with what wetland was impacted. The wetland that was impacted was not a mature forested wetland. It was a shrub, coastal kind of wetland system. And so the replication plan originally put together was mimicking what was impacted. So we tried to find a balance by making sure we transplant everything out, put them back, and then do new planting. So you're going to get more shrubs in there than originally proposed. At the same time, there weren't trees originally proposed. So that's in the tree question. The typo for Hopkinton, my apologies. I used the template from Hopkinton because they had a pretty strict standard for replication areas and impacts. And so my apologies. I can get that corrected along with the Atlantic Road issue, which I appreciate. The split rail fence, I think the intention was to leave it in place, although I do have a concern that we may have to move it up gradient because of the grading of the replication area, because it's on the edge of the replication area. And if I have to drop the grade in front of the fence 1 foot to 18 inches, the fence may not be too stable. And so I'm inclined to say I'd like to hold what's happening with the fence until we have the buffer zone impacts evaluated, because we may want to put this fence along the edge of the original buffer zone that was supposed to be protected naturally and put monuments out there versus along the edge of the wetland replication area, because then you have a permit demarcation along the limit of your jurisdictional area versus just the wetlands. So that's what I'd like to do. So that answers and then the last question is buffer zone tree removal. Yes, there were probably trees removed based on the aerials and what I saw. So our plan would be to, in any type of buffer zone restoration plan, it's going to be a herbaceous shrub and tree restoration plan. So you are going to get some more trees in the buffer zone, although there are, again, some mature white pines along the edge of this wetland replication area, which we should be able to save, no problem. And those will provide some really good shade to the replication area because they're right along the edge of the wetland that's going to be proposed once the replication area is functioning as a wetland.
Excellent. Good. Commissioners,
This
anything?
is- Yeah, I'm not happy hearing that we're taking down 18-inch trees and not replacing them somewhere else on that property. I mean, typically when we take down trees, there's a 2-to-1 replacement. So I'd like the parties to consider where they're gonna place some additional trees.
So just as clarification, the original plan assumed that those trees were going to be cut down for the wetland replication area itself. They were saved because there was an assumption that the grading around them would function as a wetland, but the grading was too high based on hydrology and augurs. When I walked the area, I first saw, I was like, those trees should have come out because the trees would end up being mounded about 18 inches above the wetland replication area, and you end up with a very large hummock. And I'd be concerned about actually killing the tree if I try to grade around it to create a wetland around it while leaving a hummocked tree. So based on the original plan, it was supposed to be cut.
Well, if it's supposed to be cut, I still believe that we need to replace those trees somewhere else, not in the wetlands area, but somewhere else on that property. You're taking down habitat, right? Those are big trees. 18-inch tree is a pretty large tree with a nice canopy on it, and it's coming down. So I think that we need to replace those with 2 trees elsewhere on that property, not necessarily in that replication area.
To the chair, do you want me to address further again, just again, for point of context, the order of conditions was issued assuming that trees in the replication area would be cut, and the order of conditions did not require tree plantings to replace trees cut as part of the wetland mitigation area. Again, we will be planting trees and shrubs at a density equal to like Mass DEP replication standards in the buffer zone for areas that were disturbed that were not permitted. So you will be seeing that. And so it might be good to table discussions about replacement of trees until the buffer zone is done. And if there's additional density that's needed there, we can discuss it at that time.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner? All right. I think you're all set, sir, for now.
So I have one last question, and this is just mainly for Chuck. Chuck, I was thinking it might be smart for us to walk the site before the surveyors do it, just to make sure we're kind of both on the same page about what the surveyors should be going after. If you have availability next week, maybe we could meet up just to walk it quickly. That might just help the surveyors capture those details we want to see, because I want this interim as-built plan to be sharp and clear for everybody, so that way we can put together a plan that's really suitable and get this thing moving and forward.
Sure. Yeah, we can touch base tomorrow and kind of figure out a time to meet, and then if any commissioners are available, they can come out as well.
Yeah, I'm flexible Monday and Wednesday anytime during those days. I'm on vacation this week, so just shoot me an email if you have availability Monday or Wednesday. I can make Tuesday work too if needed. But Monday or Wednesday, you can name a time and I could be there.
Okay.
Chuck, let us know, and maybe some of us will join.
Yeah, it's very accessible, so yeah, I'll let everybody know.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right. Anything else, Chuck?
I guess the last item is the enforcement for 137 Wingersheep Road. If you'll remember, they plan to appeal it. I don't know that has happened yet. So I guess, you know, to be proactive, if the commission wanted to refer this to the city legal department, then they could look into that course.
Okay. I haven't seen the site in a while. Has there been any?
They basically rebuilt the ramp and have been taking vehicles down there again, so.
And this one's still, this project also doesn't trip us into where we can dump it on DEP.
Well, they, at the last time we had contact with them, they said they were appealing the enforcement order. So at this point,
Nothing to do with it.
so that's why, hoping the commission will vote to refer this to the city legal department, and then the city legal department can follow up on it for us.
So what do we do? Make a motion to move this over to the legal department, refer it to the legal department?
Yeah. Yes,
Well,
We issued an enforcement order to them?
yes.
Okay.
And they said that they were going to appeal the enforcement order.
They did that?
Pardon?
Do we know if they did that?
I don't know. I have not seen anything from their end on that.
Yeah, if they did, you've already got something from the
Right.
legal.
It was recommended to me by the legal department that we should vote to refer it to the legal department, and then they could look into it.
Well, should we also consider bumping this up to the DEP?
At this point, I think it's,
Because they're in direct violation of
A lot
what
of
was, what was the order of conditions, then the enforcement order. Bring it, I think we should be considering bringing this to DEP and, let them bring the environmental police in. They can start enforcing some of this stuff.
right. I mean, at this point, there's been an enforcement issued by us. They said they're appealing it.
Gotta wait and see what happens.
DEP has to wait until it goes through the court system, I believe, before they will get involved. And so that's why I believe the commission should vote to refer it to the legal department, and then they can follow up on their end.
Yes, let's do that.
Do we want a
Yeah, but in the
motion?
meantime, they're gonna continue to use the beach as they want to do it, no matter
Right.
what. How do we go
I
about
understand.
stopping that?
But this is how it plays out. I mean, it's my understanding of, DEP is not going to get involved until this process goes to the court.
That will be a long process.
Yeah, what about if we just go to the environmental police? I mean, they're responsible for ATVs and stuff like that.
They're
You
gonna
know,
go
and
out.
they've got a valid order of conditions that prohibits them from doing it. So if the environmental police come back and say, they're not going to enforce, the environmental rules as they exist.
We talked to them back last summer when this all started, and they did not indicate that they were planning to go down there and do anything about it. So
Are they driving ATVs through piping plover habitat?
Yes.
We referred to Fish and Wildlife Service?
I think this is why we want legal advice from the city attorney as to
Yeah.
where we go next.
Yeah. I think that's the next step. We need to
Yeah.
go right now, go to our legal counsel and let them tell us the next steps. Unfortunately, like you said, Bill, probably some things are gonna get broke along the way before we can fix them, but we really can't do much more at this point. Except get legal involved, because then they can fight back and maybe stop them or push back and let them know we're here. Otherwise,
DEP is aware of all the continued activities out there. I've been letting them know what we're seeing.
When you talk to the legal department, can you sort of ask if we could impose those fines that Peter brought up before?
And I think that would be part of the process if it goes to court. Yeah. So,
okay, why don't we move to push this to legal?
Okay, Charpentier moves to refer enforcement order 24-01 at 137 Wingashiek Road to the Gloucester Legal Department.
Treadwell seconds.
roll call, member Charpentier.
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
member Treadwell,
Yes.
member Sargent,
Yes.
member Materi,
Yes.
and member Goodluck.
Okay. I think that's it.
I put one thing, sorry, this is, in my notes from 3 months ago, but, 116 East Main Street. Extension, they came in for a 1-year extension. We told them to come back by the end of June with a new design for, Riverbank, removing a chain link fence, installing a vegetated bank retaining wall. I don't know if they've submitted anything. I don't know if you want to ping them, Chuck, and just see where they're at, or if they're in the process of submitting something.
They did put a fence in the way, and we kind of told them not to, right? But yeah, Chuck, take a look at it.
Okay. See, I think they did.
It was a 0282758.
I believe they did come back. Yeah, they'd come up with another plan with Griffin Engineering. I thought they'd come back at some point to discuss that. They're basically going to be kind of creating a slope there instead of having it be flat. I can send this stuff to you guys, and I'll double check. They do have a new plan.
Do they need an amendment?
I'll go back and review kind of what happened with this one. As I said, I do believe that they came in to a meeting after this plan was submitted, but I'll double check on that, and we can maybe regroup on that.
That'd be good. Just let us know what happened. All right, anything else, people? Anybody
That's
Move to adjourn.
got a motion?
Rodwell, second.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Materi,
Yes.
and Member Gullen.
Yes. All right, good work tonight, everybody. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank
Bona
you.
Fiesta, happy 4th.
Happy Fiesta.
Everybody, be
Hope you have a
well.
5th and 4th.
Absolutely.
Be safe, everybody.
Good night.